Good afternoon and welcome back to some of you. It is now 4 p.m. and I would like to formally open this public... No? Is that all right? Yeah. Okay. Formally open this public meeting for the Mooir Vannin Offshore Wind Farm project. Before we introduce ourselves, I want to cover off a few housekeeping matters. So can I just confirm that everyone right at the back of the room can hear me? Yeah. Excellent, thank you. And if I can just also check in the virtual room and the Teams meeting, if people can hear me? There are not many attendees, okay. If I can confirm with the case manager that the live stream and recording have started? Yes, okay. And can I just request everyone present in the room to please put your devices and phones on silent? The toilets are located just outside this door on the left. There are no planned fire drills during this event, so if you hear the alarm, it is real. In the event of a fire, we will exit the building via the doors to my right and congregate in the car park. On to introductions. I am Ms. Sahai. I have been appointed under Section 27 of the Marine Infrastructure Management Act 2016, or MEMA for short, to chair the panel of examiners for this application. Together, we are known as the examining body. I confirm that I've made a conflict of interest declaration as part of my appointment, and I am a chartered member of the Royal Town Planning Institute. Which means I'm bound by their code of professional conduct. I will now hand over to my colleagues to introduce themselves.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Frances Fernandez, and I am a panel member appointed pursuant to Section 27 of MEMA. So it's good. It's a bit like being on Teams and not remembering to actually unmute yourself before you talk. Let me start that again. My name is Frances Fernandez, and I am a panel member pursuant to Section 27 of MEMA. I confirm that I've made a conflict of interest declaration as part of my appointment, and I am also a fellow of the RTPI, which means I am bound by the Code of Professional Conduct.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Ms. Pownell. I'm a panel member appointed pursuant to Section 27 of MEMA also, and can confirm I have made a conflict of interest declaration as part of my appointment. I'm also a chartered town planner, a member of the RTPI, which means I'm bound by a code of professional conduct in the same manner as it does to the other panel members, and frames my conduct for this examination.
I'm also a chartered member of the Royal Town Planning Institute, which means that I am bound by the Code of Professional Conduct in the same manner as it applies to the other panel members. And again, that frames my conduct in this examination. Now, can I just check? I believe I may not have been on microphone for part of that. Okay, all good.
Also present today are members of the Cabinet Office case team, notably Mr. Tom Randall, who provide procedural support throughout the examination process. Audiovisual service is provided by Energy Media Limited. Now, a few words about the procedure for today's meeting. This meeting will follow the agenda that was published on Monday, the 2nd of March 2026. Just a few words about how I intend to run the meeting today. Today's meeting is being undertaken in a hybrid way, meaning some of you are present here with us at the venue and very few people are joining us virtually through Microsoft Teams. Some of you have chosen to watch the live stream. Additionally, a recording of today's meeting will be made available on the MIMA website as soon as practicable after the meeting has finished. With this in mind, please ensure that you speak clearly into a microphone, stating your name and the organisation that you represent, if relevant, each time before you speak. If you're not at a table, then there are roving microphones, so please wait while one of those is brought to you. Just a few words about personal information. When speaking, do think carefully about your personal information. If you feel the need to refer to something of a personal or confidential nature, please remember that anything you do say will be included in the published recording. The Cabinet Office is administering the consenting process for applications made under MIMA, and in that regard, it will process personal data in accordance with the Data Protection Act 2018 and GDPR and LED Implementing Regulations 2018. Further information relating to data protection can be found in the Cabinet Office Privacy Notice. A link to Cabinet Office's Privacy Notice was provided in the Regulation 32 letter published on the 6th of February, and I will assume that everyone here today has familiarised themselves with this document. Please speak to Mr. Randall if you have any questions. Moving on to the purpose of the meeting. Under Section 32 of MIMA and Regulations 31 and 35 of the Marine Infrastructure Consenting Process Regulations 2024, the examining body can hold public meetings to provide opportunities as appropriate to anyone who wants to speak about the application. The examining body notified parties of its intention to hold public meeting 1, which is this one today, in its Regulation 32 letter issued on the 6th of February 2026. The agenda for the public meeting was issued on Friday the 27th, 2026, and then reissued yesterday on Monday the 2nd of March. This includes the list of persons who have registered and indicated that they wish to speak today. And that registration was received at Procedural Deadline B last week, Tuesday, the 24th of February. In order to maximise the time available for those parties to have their say, the examining body considers it appropriate that the applicant's response to matters raised are provided in writing. The applicant will therefore be invited to respond at Deadline 1 on 31st of March 2026 rather than orally at the meeting today. Now turning to all of you present today, welcome and thank you very much for coming. Can I just confirm if there are any members of the press attending the meeting? Okay. Are you intending to video record any of the proceedings? Okay, no, thank you. Moving on to registered attendees, persons registered to speak today are listed on the agenda, and I suggest that we take your introductions as we invite you to make your representation. Please note that if you've not registered to speak and your name is not included on the published agenda, we will not be calling you to speak now. We will deal with requests to speak by unregistered speakers, if there are any, in Agenda Item 4 after all the registered speakers have had their say. Are there any questions from members of the public on the matters that I've just spoken about? No? Okay, that concludes this agenda item. I will move on to Agenda Item 3. We will invite you in the order listed in the agenda. Following your representation, we may wish to ask you some questions. I don't envisage needing to take a break this evening, but we will do so if we feel it is necessary between Agenda Items 3 and 4. Speakers will be told roughly 1 minute before their time is up. Ms. Fernandez, handing over to you now.
Sure. And so may I invite Alan Desmond to come forward, please. Alan, you are very welcome. And when you're comfortable, please do start.
Alan Desmond, native Manxman, a resident of Garth. My educational background is I have a degree in geography and a postgraduate qualification in geography, where I specialised in tourism, because I'm from the Isle of Man, and town and country planning, as it was known then. And the one thing I've taken from my education, my further education, was when it came to planning, precedent was everything. Anyone wishing to lodge an application, if you had precedent, you had a very good chance of your application being accepted and going forward. And I'm sure Orsted believe they do have precedent because they already have a wind farm located within the Irish Sea, as well as other wind farms allocated in the Irish Sea. But I don't believe that we can judge apples with oranges. I think you've got to go apples for apples. So for that reason, I wanted to touch upon a planning application which went in around 10 years ago from EDF, the French energy giant, for a wind farm to be located off the Jurassic coast of Dorset, which is also, coincidentally, a UNESCO World Heritage coastline. So there is that connection with the Isle of Man, with the UNESCO Biosphere Whole Nation status. Of course, in Dorset, that didn't include the coastal waters. It simply included the coastline itself and the land. So what happened was we had an application there for 121 wind turbines, which were maximum of 200 metres high, and they covered 59 square metres of the coastline. From the outset, I must say that I do have a business in Swanage and Dorset, a retail business attached to tourism. I have one here as well in the Isle of Man, so I know the area really well. I walked every inch of the coastline there and every inch of the coastline here, so I know them both like the back of my hand. And I would say that the Isle of Man just about edges it for scenic beauty. That's my personal opinion. I'm Manx, but there you go. So the thing was, from the outset, EDF and the UK government and all the planning departments who are involved in this, they came out and they gave copious amounts of information to the general public, town councils, etc., 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 including visual images of how the wind farm would look whilst viewed from the coastline. Now, the big difference we have here is we have never had that sent out in a public document by Orsted. In fact, funny enough, yesterday this arrived on my desk, and it's a repeat of the thing they sent out last year. And on the front, you have a lovely picture of Macklehead Lighthouse, but there is not one wind turbine on view. And this has been a bit of a weakness in this process from the start, in that there's no wind turbines in view. As regards the Navitas Bay project, it was turned down. And the objectors were long and they were pretty impressive. Dorset County Council, Bournemouth and Poole Borough Council as it was then, the Purbeck District Council, Christchurch Borough Council, the National Trust, English National Heritage, the Jurassic Coast World Heritage Site Steering Group and the Royal Yacht Association. And perhaps most telling of all, UNESCO. If I might take the opportunity to read UNESCO's 9-page letter, I'll just go to the conclusion, which reads as follows. And you'll probably be aware of this. The IUCN referred to is the International Union for Conservation of Nature, which is attached to UNESCO. The IUCN considers that this project, meaning the Jurassic Coast wind farm, will have a significant impact on the natural setting of the property, which is the coastline, in that it would adversely impact on important views from the property, including views from the main visitor centre at Durlston Castle towards the Isle of Wight, where the project would replace the Isle of Wight as the dominant feature on the horizon. This is likely to significantly impact on visitor experience and appreciation of the property in its wider natural setting, which could, in turn, compromise the long-term sustainability of the management of the property through loss of revenue and reduced opportunities to present the property in its natural setting to a wide audience, i.e. visitors, basically. I go on. any potential impact from the project of this natural property are in direct contradiction to the overarching principle of the World Heritage Convention as stipulated in Article 4, as the completion of the project would result in the property being presented and transmitted to future generations in a form that is significantly different from that for which it was at the time inscribed and until today, i.e. when they were designated as a World Heritage Coastline, it would alter that permanently. Specifically, the property will change from being located in a natural setting that is largely free of man-made structures to one where its setting is dominated by man-made structures. And I can add something, my words of my own there. Basically, this is an industrialization of the marine environment.
Mr. Desmond, are you shortly coming to the end? Or?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. So compare this to the Isle of Man. We have 81 square miles. We have turbines which are 300 metres high, which are 6 miles offshore, whereas the UK national guidelines are for something of this scale to be a minimum of 22 kilometres offshore. So every turbine, virtually every turbine that Ørsted planned to site would be in contravention of the UK, well, certainly the arrangements for 2015. So that concerns me.
So I'm just conscious of time, so
okay.
To enable everybody this evening to have time this afternoon to speak to
Can I just say one more thing?
One more thing for sure.
Yeah, okay. It was also estimated in Dorset that the loss of revenue to local businesses would be £1 billion annually, and loss of jobs, mainly in the tourist sector, 25,000. Thank you.
Thank you. And a few questions, if I may, for you.
Does somebody just walk in?
And so what I would ask is, I am sure that many of you are supportive of many of the comments you would hear this evening, but we would ask that you don't clap after speakers, please. Thank you. So a couple of things. UNESCO Biosphere, do you happen to know when that was signed up to within the Isle of Man?
I should ask a government official there.
If you mind, not now, but perhaps at deadline one, if you could just clarify.
Not off the top of my head.
That would be helpful. And accepting, of course, the World Heritage Site at UNESCO is different from the UNESCO Biosphere.
Yes.
Would you, again, explain a little bit more about the UK national guidelines, which you referred to at the end? If you could provide a link or a reference to what they were, that would be hugely helpful.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Desmond.
Thank you.
And maybe please hear from Ian Straford, who I think is standing in for Amy Farra. Thank you, Ian.
Hi, good afternoon. Ian Straford, resident on the Isle of Man. Quick check, by the way, 2016 for UNESCO Biosphere. So I'm standing in for Amy, who's not able to speak today, and I wish to just read out a statement here regarding the Mooir Vannin agreement for lease. The reason I want to touch on that is around the scope of the project that's being considered, the key benefits in particular that have been purported in terms of financial and also in terms of public engagement, or lack of. So the Mooir Vannin agreement for lease, this was signed with Dong Energy back in 2015, and this is the fundamental starting point for this project. Okay, that agreement, and this is based on whatever publicly available data is available through news reports, etc., because, as I'll come to later, nobody is allowed to see the agreement for lease. Even freedom of information requests are constantly denied. But what we do know is that agreement was for feasibility studies for an offshore wind farm of up to 700 megawatts. It was not for 1.4 gigawatts. As we know, Ørsted are now presenting proposals for a 1.4 gigawatt wind farm. So the question is when did this change in scope occur? When was it authorised under the lease? And when were the public consulted on this significant scope change, and how was that decision authorised? Okay, And I think that is a key requirement and something that we would request is considered as part of this examining body because it seems to be a very significant change of scope from the original intent for between actually a 350 and a 700 megawatt agreement for research into that size of wind farm. We are aware, based on questions that were asked in Tynwald, that this lease reached its 10-year limit in 2025, although it was extended by deed in 2017 out to 2030. But a question was asked in Tynwald of the Isle of Man government, the department responsible, what value had been assigned to that lease in 10 years. The answer was £100,000 or thereabouts, i.e. £10,000 per year in terms of payment that the Isle of Man government had received. We know that the lease was, and I'll come back to that point in 1 second, we know that the lease was extended. We know that the lease was also revised in terms of option payments, socio-economic benefit requirements, and key project milestones and project requirements. We are led to also understand that this lease has not been seen by any members of Tynwald, our Parliament, our MHKs, the equivalent of members of Parliament in the UK, bar one. It has not been seen by the Chief Minister, our equivalent of your Prime Minister. It has not been seen by the Economic Policy Committee, and it has not been seen by the Energy Strategy Committee. So it would appear that there has not been any significant oversight of this within our own parliamentary system that we can see. But again, I'm clear that this is despite asking questions, but there is no information particularly forthcoming. So this is based on questions asked within Tynwald. Freedom of information requests, as I said, to see the lease have been made, but they have been refused. In the UK, the basics of the Crown Estate leases are published. Financial details are published. Developers who competed for the leases and who won and who lost are published. From that information that is published, and if I was to use the latest examples of Morgan and Mona wind farms, we would know that the value that our agreement for lease has significantly undervalued the market value of the Manx territorial seas. And I say that purely on the basis of knowing that the publicly available data for the Crown Estates shows £231 million sign-on fee for Morgan, £231 million sign-on fee for Mona, and then the ongoing annual option fees, compared to the Isle of Man receiving £100,000 over 10 years. There is...
Mr. Straford, are you nearly at the end of your representation?
I will be there soon.
I know you are speaking on behalf of...
I am, I will be there soon.
Here, but
trust me, I'll be there soon.
Keep it concise,
I will
be
be
helpful. Thank you.
So there is no transparency of what this lease may or may not bind the Isle of Man taxpayer to, people in this room. There appears to have been a significant increase in scope without consultation. I therefore request, and this is where I come to, please, that in order for a fair and transparent process to be evident, that the key aspects of value for money, because they are purported to be a key benefit to the Isle of Man from this project, risk apportionment in terms of what liabilities this project could end up with for the Isle of Man taxpayer, key milestones and the consequences of them not being met, what the socio-economic benefit assessments tell us about this project, and what liabilities and commitments have been made on behalf of the Isle of Man taxpayer. If this is to be a fair and transparent examination on the basis of the purported benefits to the Isle of Man of providing the UK with electricity, which are predominantly financial, then it's important that these aspects are considered as part of this examining board. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Straford. And if we could ask, the way that we listen to and report on what we hear is very much an evidence-based process. Mm-hmm. If there is anything that you can provide relating to the matter that you've raised this evening, that would be very helpful to us, understanding all that you've said about it not being in the public domain as per the Crown Estate. But anything that would support your representation this evening would be helpful to us.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Minda Farra, please.
Can I just help myself to a bit of water first? Thank you.
You'll see I'm doing the same thing.
Thank you. It's very warm in here.
Take your time, take your time.
Are you ready now?
Yes, yeah? As soon as you're ready.
So, Minda Farra, Vice Chairman of Gulf Commissioners, but speaking...
And I apologise for mispronouncing your surname.
That's fine. Lots of people do. Speaking from my personal experience and perspective as a Manx qualified Blue Badge guide today, since for 30 years, and I also hold a master's degree in Manx studies. In the light of the assertion by Mooir Vannin that its approach to their environmental assessment is uniquely Manx, my thoughts have concentrated on Manx identity, what it is, can it be defined, what contributes to it, or may diminish it, and who has been consulted on this. This last year I've led pilgrimage tours, a growing visitor interest worldwide to our island, and the visit to Kirkmackle is a must-do. 7th century monastic site on the northern coast promontory, where people come year-round to experience the centuries-old spiritual connection, peace, beauty and tranquility, as evidenced in the visitor book. Mooir Vannin's environmental statement states that here the impact of development will be negligible. Who have they asked about this? Where is their research? And have they consulted with the body, the organisation which represents historic Mackle, who have invested much time and effort in recent years into researching and promoting this ancient and unique Manx pilgrimage site, made famous by our island's patron saint himself, Mackle? Can they identify any other sacred sites where wind farms have been permitted in such close proximity, please? Many such sites are in isolated and coastal positions like Mackle. How would the Scottish Government react if something like this was planned overlooking Iona, I wondered. I also work with the visiting cruise ships, the luxury expedition ships which travel the world. They call in here because of our island's distinct identity and differences. It is a growing business. These visitors will have seen wind farms everywhere. Nothing different here then. These are people who come here to see our wildlife, to walk our coastline and take photographs, travel on the unique coastal railway and admire the 7 kingdoms from the top of Snaefell, views to the Lake District most summer days. They are educated, interested in environmental things and how we manage conservation. If this goes ahead, they may quote environmental damage in other parts of the world, whether factual or perceived. They will ask me about our Manx dolphins, moonlight and starlight, how they are affected, and the decline in coastal nesting birds. They will ask me who is benefiting from this. How will I answer them, knowing the differing scientific opinions on environmental issues and the financial arrangements yet to be determined? It's like Manannan's mist. Another question then. Have they consulted our Manx-based cruise ship management company to ask how they perceive the industry which they and our government have helped to grow will be impacted by this? Have they asked any local guides? Nicola Dixon, the professional Manx artist, is quoted in the Manx Marine Environmental Assessment 2018 on the marine environment. It is far better, she says, for the outside observer that the Isle of Man is home to its basking sharks and wonderful scenery than its banks, trusts and online gambling. I agree with her. How often have I had to defend the island's reputation as a tax haven? I work with these outside observers. I have to try to put a positive spin on things to promote the island. It's my job. But how will I answer their questions on this massive development so close to our shores? How have you allowed this to happen? They will ask me. I will have similar questions from those I lead on at our walking festival who've travelled here to enjoy our coastal walks. This is not a uniquely Manx project. It is uniquely non-Manx. It is in a danger of altering our island character. It is an invasion. Surely we have the chance to protect what makes the island special, those things which identify us, our differences. what makes our island stand out as a gem of God's earth. This is what people come here for. Have they consulted Culture Vannin on the subject of Manx identity then, and how this development may impact this? There are other bodies on the island with an interest in the cultural landscape and heritage, not just Manx national heritage. I feel this is vital for the island going forward, to the preservation of our very sense of place. Where is their survey of visitors to our shores, which may have provided some evidence of impact? The visitor numbers, which is the island is committed to increasing, they simply state in their EIA a lack of data on tourism assets, on usage of our public rights of way, a lack of data on visiting cruise ship numbers. They're easy to get. Is it enough to say that government did not reply to their questions? I cannot believe that a discerning visitor would choose a boat trip out to see a wind turbine rather than a boat trip to have an encounter with our dolphins. Why don't they ask them? This should not be a desktop job. The island deserves much more. Have they ensured that they've consulted with those with specific Manx and local knowledge and experience? And surely this should have been done at the formative stage of these proposals to follow the gunning principles, which they mention, Volume 1, Chapter 6, page 10. What is the urgency about? If this is driven by financial gain, then to balance that, how can the island afford to risk losing any of its distinct identity?
Thank you very much. A few questions, if I may. What is a blue badge guide? And forgive me if I should know this.
It's a qualification which is particularly Manx-based. You have a blue badge for working anywhere in the world, or you can have, but mine is specific to working on the Isle of Man.
And does that mean that you take groups around the island? So how does it manifest itself, if I can understand
take them anywhere. I'm qualified to lead any trips anywhere on the island, so it'll be on a coach. A lot of the work I do these days is with the cruise ships that come in, and the pilgrimage tours was new this year. I was asked to do that. So I've done it for 30 years. Lots of people earn a living by it, earn a living being a blue badge guide on the island. I don't, I'm retired, so I do other things.
And you also refer to cruise ships and data. If you, again, you'll hear us say this several times this afternoon, this evening. If there's any evidence that you have available, would you please send that to us at deadline 1, which is at the end of March? Again, that's extremely helpful for us.
I could get those visitor numbers for you.
Yeah, that'd be helpful. And just a small point of clarification. Are you speaking to us today as yourself or as part of GARF Commissioners? I wasn't quite clear.
I'm speaking as myself, because I wanted to bring something else to the table that I wasn't aware of from the environmental impact assessments.
Yeah, that's helpful. Thank you ever so much. And now, Richard Henthorne, please.
Okay, I'm going to time myself because I'm going to have to just keep a check. I'm keeping time. Thank you. So my name's Richard Henthorne. I'm here this afternoon to represent both GARF commissioners and also, if I have time, a minute at the end for my own personal views, if I may. Following a public meeting last year to gauge our community's views on this proposal, GARF commissioners found that they shared the concerns voiced by many residents, and I'd like to highlight some of those concerns this afternoon. Others speaking this afternoon, I'm sure, will cover the other concerns. The first and most obvious concern of residents is the devastating visual impact this proposal will have on the coastline of GARF. These structures are obscenely huge and overbearing, the largest ever created, over 1,000 foot high each one. They will be viewable from the entire east coast of the island, but will have a particularly unavoidably oppressive and overbearing presence on the entire GARF seascape all the way to the top of Snaefell. They will become the 8th kingdom of man, the kingdom of Orsted. They will completely obliterate the idyllic and tranquil sea views experienced by all who visit the beautiful little idyllic coves like Cornay, Portmore and Dugen. and I urge the these panel members, if you have time after these meetings, to go down to Cornay and sit on the beach and just see how absolutely beautiful it is. The original scoping report document for the Isle of Man government fairly casually says the approach to visual receptors should be the same as those used in the UK shoreline. What they are saying here is that they haven't identified their own approach, so they're simply going to borrow one from the UK. We are not the UK. However, in the government's own landscape character assessment document 2025, section H states, amongst other things, these fundamental facts. The key characteristics of the cliffs and headlands of Garth are some of the most spectacular and dramatic scenery on the Isle of Man. This is partially due to the constant awareness and juxtaposition with the sea. These magnificent panoramic views and sense of isolation and tranquility are fundamental to Manx identity. Mackle's Head's depth of landscape and lack of modern elements gives views of an ever-changing seascape, sometimes with Scotland and England visible on the horizon. The lighthouses and headland are striking landmarks from both the sea and the dramatic views from the cliff tops on the coastal paths out to sea. It is a dark skies area because of any lack of light pollution. These statements are from the government's own landscape character assessment document published in 2025. It states our strategy to protect these unique features in the island are: the views should be retained and care should be taken to avoid any placement of insensitive or intrusive features within these views. Offshore wind farms may impact the views from the coast and on the settings of coastal landmarks, introducing man-made elements into an otherwise natural landscape. We should avoid new developments which protrude above the skyline. We should avoid light pollution from existing and new developments. We should protect the undeveloped and open character of this distinctive skyline and avoid development which protrudes over them. We should protect the dark skies. We should protect the archaeological and historical sites and their settings, resisting the introduction of new features which could become distracting elements within. For these reasons stated in the government's own landscape character assessment document alone, this application should not get past the consenting stage. Ørsted's own environmental impact, which is buried in their application technical papers, agrees with these statements, saying that Mackle coastline is relatively modest in scale and closely associated with the open sea. There are long-range and expansive views from the coastline that are dominated by the ever-changing eastern Irish Sea. The effect of the offshore array on the perceived character of Dugen, Cornay and Mackle is assessed as being major, significant. Laxey Bay. There is a distinct sense of place derived from the shallow bay and its contrast to the vast open expanse of the sea. The distant coastline of England encloses a long range and wide views out to sea. The consistent rotor movement of an offshore array would contrast with the dynamic and remote appearance of the sea from the cliff tops. The array would exert close-range influences on the coastal landscape, and for this reason the offshore array would exert a relatively strong influence in the area within Laxey Bay. The perceived character of Laxey Bay is assessed as major, significant. It ends by saying the effect of the offshore array would be largely unprecedented due to the apparent scale of the proposed turbines. They would be artificial structures in contrast to the vegetated cliffs and the headlines, which promote a sense of remoteness and seclusion. The artificial nature of the proposed turbines would erode these qualities along with natural qualities of the coastal edge. The visual impacts of the installation are considered to be major and significant. Just by admitting this in Ørsted's paperwork doesn't mean we can tick the box and move on. It begs the question, why are we even having this conversation? As it's obvious that what I've read out from this proposal is completely unsuitable amongst our coastal waters, both in terms of its size, its proximity, and the fact that its primary generating power is for the UK network. And apart from the unknown financial details, it has very little benefit for the Isle of Man. Unfortunately, I personally feel that the present administration are so financially and morally bankrupt they're willing to sell Garth down the river for what appears to be a very, very poor deal. And it's all down to money. Whatever the deal is and whatever may become, it's not worth selling our heritage and our sense of Manx nation and giving up our long fought for Manx territorial waters. Garth commissioners are not against green energy or government net zero policy.
You there?
Yeah.
Are you shortly to finish?
Yes. 3 lines. Garth commissioners are not against green energy or government's net zero policy, but the devastation of Garth's seascape is too big a price to pay to achieve a UK-based goal. If the UK think these wind farms are so great, why don't install them right the way down Whitehall, right up the mall to Buckingham Palace? Try to imagine that. It would be an uproar. It would be a monstrous carbuncle. It's not acceptable for them, and it wouldn't be acceptable for us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. As I said before, no clapping, please. No, you might want to, but please don't. But before you disappear, Mr. Henthorne, I would be grateful if you'd return to the table.
I've got more if you want it.
And indeed, we'd be very happy to receive deadline 1. Anything further that you wish to submit to us?
Yeah.
But before you do that, you referred to a public meeting to gauge the feeling of people within Garth on the proposals.
Yes.
Again, for our benefit, if there is any record of the meeting or anything that happened at the meeting, notes, whatever, if you could send that through to us at deadline 1, that would be extremely useful.
I'll ask the clerk of commissioners to send through notes from it. I will, yes, thank you.
And again, there's a slight ambiguity as to whether you were speaking as yourself, which I think you were, but I think I had you registered as representing Garth commissioners, so clarity on that point would again be useful.
It's entirely represented Garth commissioners' views, apart from the bit where I personally said I thought the government were morally and financially bankrupt. That's my own view, and I stick by it.
Thank you.
They've seen the dollar sign.
Thank you very much. And then let's turn to, please, Jim McGregor.
Not really prepared. I haven't got any papers here with me.
You don't have to have papers, but that's fine.
That's all right. That's good. So my name's Jim McGregor. I've got a geography degree, postgraduate geography degree, and I've been teaching geography on the islands for 28 years now. But these are my own views, not anything to do with education, so just make that clear. We've recently been changed our syllabus that we teach the students on the islands, and one of the big changes is change itself. On all the different aspects we look at in geography is about changing coastlines, changing rivers, so sustainability clearly comes into everything. And we obviously have to teach, and we're surveyed by the government and make sure that we are teaching about sustainability in amongst our syllabus. And one of the things that sort of comes up is, how do you put across sustainability to the students? Now, sustainability should be about keeping things for future generations. And I think already it's been made really clear, the point that the coastline here is something unique. I personally am not against wind farms. Now, I'm probably going to sound a little bit like a NIMBY now, because I live on Shore Road in Laxey, and my bedroom looks straight out over Laxey Bay, so obviously I'm going to be looking at wind farms very soon. But it's really, for me, it's about the location. I've canoed around the islands a couple of times, and so I've got a good perspective of, usually when you're canoeing out, you go across the bays, through the headlands. So we're talking about sort of, sometimes 2-3 miles out. And quite honestly, from Laxey around to Ramsey is one of the best bits of the coastline on the Isle of Man. Now, I actually got in touch with Orsted and asked him about how many properties would actually be looking out onto the proposal. I've got to say it was a little bit flippant, the answer, in that we don't have that data, which I think we've already heard from other people before. And I disagree with that. And that's really my main request and my main reason for coming today, is to ask that actually, as part of the process, can we actually get a proper visual impact assessment of how many properties on the island are going to be seeing these turbines? Now, I don't think it's too difficult. We've got the Mangus map work on the Isle of Man, and with GIS you should be able to accurately, not maybe get every single window, but you should be able to get every single property and how many we'll see there, and then maybe survey those properties, because of course they're the ones that, in sustainable terms, it is going to change, no question about it. And I find it quite difficult to, I know the benefits, I know about the marine wildlife increases when you build a wind farm. around the base of it. There's no fishing in the area, things like that. I get that. But like I said before, canoeing around the islands, one of the things that do consider is, I actually made a suggestion and said I really don't know why it hasn't been located maybe to the northwest of the island. As you're canoeing round, you've got boulder clay cliffs, and there's some places, for example, Joby Head, you might get about 3 or 4 isolated farmhouses which have got a view out onto the coastline. Now that's a very different sort of relief of terrain compared to Macgold, Laxey and down onto Onken, where we've got a large percentage of the population, even in Douglas of course, that are going to be looking at these wind farms. And I look out of my window at night and I can see the blinking of the wind farm, I don't know the name, sorry, but the one in Morecambe Bay. Is it called Morecambe Bay? I can see the red lights sort of twinkling there. That's a very different proposition. It's already been highlighted. If you look at the leaflet, you look at the website, there's a lovely image of Macgold Head. No wind farms. Surely we've been a bit disingenuous with the public and not sort of highlighting what actually is going to be looking like. I went to the meeting where, I think it was in the Laxey Pavilions, where you could put on the VR headset and you could actually see, you could see from Ramsey, you could see from Macgold what they were going to look at. It's quite horrifying, and I think there's a good reason why it hasn't been promoted. So I'm a little bit confused, firstly, with why it hasn't been located somewhere where there is very little in the way of visual impact, and they've chosen the one side of the island. The only thing I can come up with, maybe, I don't know about money and things, but I'm just wondering whether to do with electricity connector cables. I had a visit with the school students down to Douglas Quay the other day, and we visited the power station there that's been converted where the cable comes ashore. So presumably there's some connection with it has to be on the east of the island to connect with the cable, but that's solvable in itself, doing a connector cable across the island if it was located on the northwest of the island, maybe sort of Joby Head, that sort of area would have a lot less impact. So I would request that, you know, we look at properly at the visual impact and how many properties actually can see it. The other thing I was just thinking about then, just listening to our commissioners there.
And if I could just ask you to be concise on any final points.
About what, sorry?
Any final points, if you could be concise now.
Yeah. So just the last thing I was going to say is that, you know, I was just listening to commissioners there and living in Garth. If I want to change my windows, I have to get planning permission. I live in a conservation zone. It is very stringent in our conservation zone in Old Laxey. Now, it's a little bit like, I teach about Antarctica. Antarctica, the rules are ridiculous. You cannot do hardly anything at all in Antarctica, of course. There's nothing to stop the fishing. So when the krill are overfished off the coast of Antarctica, the impact, of course, affects everything that's on Antarctica, you know, the king emperor penguins, everything else. And I think there's some sort of analogy there between that and what we're looking at here with the wind farm, in the fact that we're very restricted on the island, and yet there's big development plans for something that seems like we don't have much control over. Thanks.
Thank you very much. And just a couple of points that we should make across the room this evening. The applicant is hearing what you're saying and will be responding after the public meeting at deadline 1 with any of the comments that have been made in response to those. And also earlier this afternoon at the preliminary meeting, we made a procedural direction about accompanied site inspections. And if people have locations where they would like us to visit on an accompanied site inspection, then please do let us know. Thank you very much for your representation, Mr. McGregor. And then may I ask Ms. Newton to come forward, please?
I won't cover the mic with my papers this time.
And if you would like to take a drink or anything, please do.
My name's Patricia Newton. I'm a Garth resident. I'm also a town planner, but I resigned my membership after 40 years of the Institute, that is. I've worked on the Isle of Man as a town planner for 36 years. There's two considerations I want to put before you. One is to do with the Morgan wind farm. Obviously, I know the proposed Morgan wind farm is not on the Isle of Man, but it will be adjacent, or maybe adjacent to us in the Irish Sea. Most recently, it was announced, not by the proposers, but by somebody, the local MP, who reported in the Manx press that Morgan wind farm the operator was no longer going to go ahead with their plans, albeit they were consented at the end, towards the end of last year. However, I understand that that consent is personal to the operator, but can, with the consent of the Secretary of State, be passed on to another operator, albeit the marine licenses with it can't automatically be transferred. I would hope the panel will look at this proposal in terms of the cumulative impacts it could have as implications for the operational effectiveness of Mooir Vannin, wind turbines, the visual impact, the ecology and shipping lanes in relation to Mooir Vannin. So I think, albeit we don't know whether it will be built or not, I believe we need to look at this along with the fact that the wind turbines are the same height as proposed at Mooir Vannin, they're proposed at Morgan, they're proposed an extension the Morecambe field, the Mona field, and possibly the Morecambe ones as well. So I think it's not just that Mooir Vannin, I think, will become the largest possibly the largest wind turbine field in the world, because of its basically linked to the Walney extensions and the Walney wind farms at the moment. It has to be looked at in the wider context of the Irish Sea. And if you do, as I suggested this morning, take the opportunity to cruise across the Irish Sea, the Irish Sea is just going to become a sea of wind turbines. And the Irish Sea is the worst sea in the world, and any ship captain will tell you that. Because it is so shallow, it is rough, and the sea, the ferry links, boat links, have to have the ability to alter their routes to cope with conditions, albeit at the moment, as we've found in the Isle of Man, they're more likely to cancel the sailings. But the other points I mainly want to make, I think, have primarily already been made. It's the visibility of the wind turbines. I know from your list you've seen a lot of the viewpoints suggested by the operators, but most of those are sitting at low level. I would hope, and I will be suggesting other viewpoints for you to look at, which link to both the historical and archaeological importance of sites, which basically, because Isle of Man is an island, their history and their archaeology link to the fact that it is an island and to the sea, and that open sea, which will not become open if this proposal goes ahead. I think some of the other viewpoints obviously again have been mentioned. The Growdell Glen Railway, the Manx Electric Railway. I invite you to have trips along the whole of the length of those railways, because I do it regularly, certainly in the Manx Electric. And the comments from people, you point out viewpoints to them, but you hear their comments all the time on this coastline. So, and the final bit I would refer you to, which I can hopefully get more papers about, and excuse my Welsh pronunciation. Is it Ollie Moore? I'm not sure. A-W-E-L.
Ollie Moore. Turbine farm. This one was reduced
from, I believe, around 90 to 50, well, between 32 and 50 turbines. The reason it was reduced was because of the adverse comments he got at public consultation. That public consultation was undertaken by the operator before submitting the application. So basically, they reduced down a huge amount because of adverse comment. And the adverse comment was on the impact on the seascape and the adverse impact on tourism and recreation. What we have here is we've got a reduced number, but it's come down from about 98 or something to 87 as a result of public consultation. And it was not clear the height of these turbines at the beginning. They are 3 times the height of existing turbines in the Irish Sea, albeit other fields have also been proposed to have 1,000 feet, and that's to the blade tip. It's not to the hub. Or the, which,
may I ask if you're nearly finished?
That is it, basically. So,
thank you. And just in reference to one of your points earlier, we did indeed walk down the Growder Glen Railway. Of course, there were no trains on it at the time, but we have walked along there, so we know exactly where you're referring. But thank you very much for your representation this evening. Rind, I think Mr. Smith has one question.
Before you disappear, I will flag the fact that we are taking a careful note of matters in relation to navigation and navigational risk for all classes of vessel in the Irish Sea. And we are conducting this week specific issue hearing number 3 that will start the process of unpacking the applicant's approach to the assessment of navigational risk. I would, given your interest in that, 2 things. If you have specific observations to make on it that might assist us, then please do put something in at deadline 1. But secondly, for your own interest and background, either attend or alternatively watch online or the recording of specific issue hearing 3, because we will be investigating those matters with some level of detail.
Come throughout the inquiry. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Newton. And at that point, I will invite Ms. Ward. And
I'm meant to be leading these items, I believe, Ms. Fernandez. If we can just transition now, I believe Rachel Ward, representing BAE Systems, and Alistair Old, representing NATS en route safeguarding air traffic services. They were due to be appearing virtually. If I can just do a final check with case team, see that they're not in the virtual room, and just to check to see if they've managed to find their way into the back of the room without announcing their presence. I don't believe they're here. So items 7 and 8 on this evening's agenda, therefore, ladies and gentlemen, we will move past. Can I then invite Ms. Janet Clark, please, to come forward?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Ms. Clark.
I am a Manx resident. I'm Janet Clark. I'm a Manx resident. I have a physics background with postgraduate qualifications and research papers in medical and social science. I'd like to address this question to the applicant Ørsted through the examining authority. This project, like most large-scale renewables, is managed through a special purpose vehicle, a company that can be sold, restructured or wound up during or after construction. That structure protects investors, but not necessarily the host community. Across the sector, we've seen what happens when markets change. Vattenfall abandoned its Norfolk Boreas project in Britain, Avangrid withdraw from the Commonwealth Wind in Massachusetts, and BP and Equinor terminated their Empire Wind contracts in New York. Even Ørsted, the world's largest offshore wind developer, has cancelled or withdrawn from major projects in New Jersey, Maryland, Norway, and Britain's Hornsea 4. after recording over £7 billion in write-downs and an approximately 80% share price collapse since 2021. Last year, its own government shareholder in Denmark was forced to inject new capital and underwrite a rights issue to maintain solvency, a level of bailout the Isle of Man could never duplicate. For a community of 85,000 people, a collapse on that scale would be devastating. Therefore, through you, Chair, may I ask the applicant, will Ørsted go beyond standard industry practice and commit to fully funded inflation-linked bond to be held and administered by the Isle of Man government, together with a binding parent company guarantee from Ørsted AS, ensuring that all construction, decommissioning and environmental repair costs are covered should the SPV, that is the special purpose vehicle, or its parent entity fail? To avoid any misunderstanding, it would be helpful if the applicant's written response could address this question directly, instead of referring only to standard procedures or general industry practice. Standard approaches elsewhere rarely require a locally administered parent-backed bond. The request here is for a specific enforceable condition that ring-fences the full liability within a secured local instrument rather than a revocable corporate undertaking. This is not an obstacle to development, it is a basic prudence. If Ørsted cannot make that commitment, it would raise serious concerns about the project's financial resilience and its capacity to protect the island from unfunded liabilities in future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Clark. Now, I will just briefly explore the underlying issue there, which is your concern about the financial.
I will do my best to respond, but
yeah.
I've got a big hearing loss, and the sound is a little bit distorted for me.
Okay. Well, I will do my.
I have got the references of the different.
Excellent.
There, and I can hand them to you now, or I can send them in.
Send them in at deadline 1, and I will also indicate that one of the dimensions of the proposal in front of us that we are in the process of investigating is the financial relationship between the proposed development and its ability essentially to pay its way. The applicant has offered to prepare what is referred to as a funding statement, and that was an offer that was put into us in the preliminary meeting this morning. We haven't received it yet. It is likely to arrive at deadline 1. And again, my suggestion would be that you also review that document when it arrives, because it may address some of the points that you have raised. I didn't catch
everything you said, but I'll watch the recording. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Can I raise a point of order, please?
Yes, by all means. Can I just ask you to come forward and use the microphone so that you're on the recording, and then to introduce yourself by name, sir?
Jamie Smith. I'm a Garth Commissioner, but this is just a personal point, and I apologise for the interruption. I am concerned that you've mentioned that 2 speakers haven't been able to join virtually. There is only 1 person in the room. At this morning's session, there were literally dozens in the room. I realise there's a live streaming as well, but are you not concerned that people are unable to connect?
There is a possibility that there may be a technical issue. What we will ask the case team to do is to make contact with the individuals who did register for virtual connection. And if it has turned out that they have been unable to connect because of matters beyond their control, then we will, of course, make the arrangements that we need to make to bring them back into a later event. But I think it's fair also to observe that whilst we did have many registrants for virtual attendance this morning, and as far as we could tell, they all were able to attend, this afternoon we haven't had as many registrants, so their absence may turn out to be oversight. It may turn out to be blunt with you, sir, the 2 individuals concerned represent 2 corporate entities for whom there may be other dimensions in this examination that will bring forward their views, either written questions from us or possible later hearings. I don't know.
I was just concerned that there might be other people as well who will want to listen, but okay, I apologise for the interruption.
Just on that matter, is my microphone on? On that matter, it's a good point, and if we were to take a break this evening, that is a matter we'll investigate and look into, because I think the point is well made. There are a few virtual attendees, and I'm looking at the register, who appear to have not turned up. So thank you very much for bringing that to our attention.
I understand there's 3 virtual registries in total.
Okay, thank you very much for that point. We, as Ms Sahai has committed, we will investigate it. Now, we do have a request to be heard from Mr Ian Straford. On this occasion, Mr Straford, not representing another person, but speaking on your own behalf. I will make the point, by the way, that we don't normally allow double representation in public meetings. We normally ask people to make their point and then, in fairness, distribute the time so that everybody who asks to speak can speak. But equally, it is fair and correct that somebody can represent somebody else who is unable to be with us. So, Mr Straford, you were representing somebody else, you're now representing yourself. Please do come forward.
Thank you very much. Yes, Ian Straford representing myself. I'm conscious that many other people actually explained what their background is, and I haven't. I hold a mathematics degree. I am experienced in writing complex nuclear safety cases for nuclear facilities and have spent 32 years in the nuclear industry. I'd like to just touch on 2 points, if I may. One around the biosphere. I appreciate it's been mentioned earlier, but there are some additional points I'd like to make, and one around the renewable energy net zero claims. In terms of the biosphere, for context, the project being considered, in terms of percentage of territorial seas, to give an understanding of size and scale, we are talking about consenting a project which is the equivalent of 5 times the current installed capacity in the UK in one go, in terms of what it covers. In the fact that this will cover around about 5% or so of our territorial seas, and currently about 1% of the UK's territorial seas are covered through offshore wind farms. So this is a huge deal in terms of scale, and that relates to our biosphere. The project claims that this is aligned with the Isle of Man's UNESCO biosphere aims. As I said earlier, we became a UNESCO whole nation biosphere, including our territorial seas, in 2016. And this is a key selling point for the Isle of Man, and therefore incredibly important to the Isle of Man, both for tourism and indeed what our nation is about in terms of ecological sustainment, sustainable living and development and so on. I believe that this project has the potential to significantly damage our UNESCO biosphere status. The aims of our biosphere are well publicised. Examples are: an aim of our biosphere is to celebrate and promote all that is special about the Isle of Man and its surrounding seas. This is not aligned to that aim. An aim of our biosphere is to celebrate and contribute to our sense of place. Destroying the unique seascape along the eastern seaboard is not aligned to that aim. An aim of our biosphere is to contribute to preserving and enhancing our land and seascapes and biodiversity. This project is not aligned to that aim. An aim of our biosphere is to encourage people to live in, work in and visit the Isle of Man. This project is not aligned to that aim. An aim of our biosphere is to connect people with nature and their surroundings. This project is not aligned to that aim. An aim of our biosphere is to recognise and value the environmental, social and economic benefits we gain from our natural systems. This project is not aligned to that aim. And an aim of our biosphere is to engage our population on issues and challenges relating to conservation and sustainability. And I would contend this project has not effectively engaged with the population of this island. It has not effectively explained what this will mean, what it will look like. You've heard about that before. And whilst there has been, I will call it, publicised material, beautiful posters down at the airport, which I'm sure you've all seen, showing the beautiful headlands of Mackle, with a few throwaway benefit potentials, but not really showing the true reality of what is proposed to be delivered. I would argue that is not effective engagement and allowing true public consultation. Our biosphere status celebrates what makes us special. It tells the world we care about it. We have a conscience and are committed to sustaining it. Islands need to be more self-reliant than other jurisdictions, establish a local perspective on sustainability and find local solutions to local sustainability issues. Delivering power in the latter half of the 2030s, when the island is legally committed already to having clean power by 2030, this is not a local solution to local issues. This is a UK solution to a UK issue. Construction, operation and decommissioning, furthermore, of Mooir Vannin will add significantly to the Isle of Man's carbon footprint, whilst the UK offsets its own. We know that construction is estimated at 5.8 million tonnes of carbon footprint. The Isle of Man, from its electricity generation, creates about 200,000 tonnes of carbon dioxide equivalent, but by 2030 is aiming to be zero. So this does add to our carbon footprint whilst offsetting the UK.
Mr. Straford,
yep.
Can I ask you now to simply draw your commission to a stop?
You can, but I have got a second point and it is important. So I request that the examining board seriously consider the aspect which is unique for any application of this type, lest the Isle of Man risk losing the hard-won and internationally significant environmental status of our biosphere. The second point, which I'll come to very quickly for you, which I've probably touched on some of it already, is the project claims to support our renewable energy and near net zero targets. It's not scheduled to be connected to the UK grid until 2037, according to the tech database of NESO. We will be carbon zero by 2030 under our Climate Act. It therefore does not support the Isle of Man renewable energy targets. Mooir Vannin does not support net zero because the electricity exported to the UK will displace UK carbon emissions, and according to IPCC conventions, this cannot be claimed therefore displace Isle of Man emissions. And the Isle of Man can't claim offsetting until it's followed the carbon hierarchy of avoid, reduce and replace, and only then can it claim for those emissions that cannot be avoided for carbon offsetting. But Mooir Vannin will not be able to do that because they have already been claimed. I'm going to go to my final point and then I will shut up, I promise.
I'm not asking you to shut up, these are cogent points, but in fairness, I do have to ask you to speak in the same time duration lot as well. So a very, very brief conclusion now, please.
So my final conclusion is, and I mentioned it this morning, other options have been considered as far as the Isle of Man is concerned. And I ask that those 5 are considered, and I have sent the report to Tom with respect to how we meet net zero, how the Isle of Man's local solution is delivered on a local basis, as opposed to authorising the construction of an offshore wind farm to provide electricity and net zero to a different nation from the Isle of Man. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you very much. For those observations, Mr. Straford. You've spoken at some considerable length about the UNESCO biosphere status
Yes.
of the Isle of Man. And one of the things that we obviously need to take account of is that designation, and we need to consider where it sits in the relationship of essentially requirements and policy provisions that apply to the island and to the consenting process. If you've got observations that you would like to make, apologies if I've been switched off, if you've got observations that you would like to make in relation to those matters, then please do put them in at deadline 1. But I would also direct this point to the applicant and ask them to address the relevance and the weight to be ascribed to the biosphere designation in their written response to this evening's proceedings. Thank you very much. And on that basis, I'm going to hand over to Ms. Pownall.
Mr. Smith, I think the early part of that recording was not heard, but maybe just summarise again for the audio, because those listening online, I think, didn't hear.
Indeed. Well put. Just to say that in hearing Mr. Straford, he made extensive reference to the UNESCO biosphere status of the Isle of Man. And what we have therefore asked him to do is to put to us any observations that he might have about the relevance and weight in policy terms that we might accord in our recommendation to those matters when we finally make our report, but also to ask the applicant to provide the same comment in writing when they respond to this matter at deadline 1. So those opportunities are both there. Now, can I hand over to Ms. Pownall, please?
Thank you, Mr. Smith. I think it's Anne Crane. Is Anne Crane? While you get yourself settled, I just wanted to pull together the points that the panel are making in terms of 3 things. One is that the applicant is recording and responding to the issues you're raising. The second thing is that... Sorry, do you want to say?
Yeah, I think we missed Mr. Dugen.
Oh, did we?
We can go to him afterwards, but just so long as...
Mr. Dugen, do you mind if you come after Anne Crane? Would that be all right? He's attending virtually. I'm hoping that he'll give a thumbs up. I can't actually see the screen. If I just continue with what I was just summarising, that the applicant will be responding to the issues you're raising today, and that, as we keep saying, if you have any additional information over and above your consultation responses, then please do, if you think that they'll be useful to us, submit them at deadline 1. And the third thing is that, as Rin was saying, there's an issue-specific hearing on Friday on shipping and navigation. So do look at the timetable, which was in the Regulation 32 letter, because that will tell you when issue-specific hearings are coming up. So if there are issue-specific issues, to use the word twice, that you want to raise, then you're very welcome to attend those as well. It's not just limited to this public hearing. So we do want to hear what people have to say and take it on board and consider it as part of the examination. So Anne, if you'd like to start, that'd be great. Thank you so much.
Fast am I. Good afternoon. And thank you for the opportunity to speak to you this afternoon. My name is Anne Crane. I am a resident of Maccled Parish and the Sheading of Garth. I am a past member of Tynwald, where I served as Education Minister and Minister for the Treasury. I'm also, along with Minda, a Blue Badge Guide. Much has been made in the accompanying procedural papers of this hearing to the uniquely Manx approach to be adopted. Well, I am one of those who is uniquely Manx, and my family have lived in the same farm, Balafale, just south of Maccled Head, for 300 years. We have to the back of us the Balafale Cairn, a Neolithic tomb dating from 2500 to 1600 BC. And we have within sight of that cairn one of the island's most outstanding and best preserved ancient monuments, Castell yn Ard. This monument dates from around 2000 BC and was a megalithic chambered cairn, such as were used for communal burial places of Neolithic chieftains and their families. Along this stretch of coastline, we have many such cairns, East Ballatessan, the Barony, Keelwurra, to name but a few, which bring a rich sense of spirituality to our community. As we turned to the 6th century and the arrival of St Maccled, so Maccled became the birthplace of Christianity in the Isle of Man. It became a time of pillage, and monasteries such as that of Maccled were frequently robbed. By the 8th century, the Norsemen arrived, plundering our coast. There is a Gaelic verse written which, translated, tells that comfort can be taken from the storms of the night because it will prevent pirates from approaching the shore. It reads, "The wind is boisterous tonight, the white hair of the ocean is tousled. I do not fear that there may come across the Irish Sea hordes of fierce Vikings." Unfortunately, it takes more than stormy weather to hold them back today. But what was created as a result was a unique system of watch and ward, with stations or forts the length of the coast, Mackled Head being one, that were established to protect our shores from marauders. That of Gobnagarvan, south of Mackled Head, is sited on an Iron Age promontory fort. The establishment of the Mustering Cross, a burning cross that was delivered around the island's watch and ward outpost to call for help, was a uniquely Manx act, and still within the powers of the captains of the parishes that date back to the 15th century. We are steeped in history. The poet John Betjeman said of our churches, "They may lack architectural distinction, but they have a storm-resisting, prayer-soaked holiness about them." It's against the backdrop of this ancient heritage that your decisions are set today. In 1991, in impassioned debate, the Territorial Seas Consequential Provisions Act was passed in order to extend and secure our marine limit to 12 miles. It was done to enable us to have greater strength to command what happens to the marine environment around the island and enables us to collect fees and issue licenses. It also affords us a level of protection from those who would choose to exploit the beauty and natural resources of our island. We've seen this kind of approach before. One such was an American company who back in the 1960s made a strong bid to develop an oil refinery at the Point of Ayr. As can be seen today, they were, thankfully, unsuccessful, but there have been others who have come and who have gone. To allow our island home and ancient heritage to sit against a wall of oversized, in height and number, wind turbines is obscene. Would this be acceptable on this scale at Stonehenge? Go on your location visits, walk the Mackled Brews, visit Balafale Cairn and Castellanard, and get an understanding of what is being proposed here and the impact that these sea turbines will do to our soul. This development would have an unacceptable, sacrilegious impact on our cultural heritage. The benefits to us are minimal. Looking elsewhere, the proliferation of wind farms is a blight on the landscape. We cannot allow that to happen here. There are alternatives that over time will come to fruition. I'll close by quoting our national poet T.E. Brown, who said that there are things that are not for the mart of commerce, and this is one of them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was really helpful and informative. There was two things, if I may. I think we really recognise the importance of Uniquely Manx, and that's something that is on the agenda for the issue-specific hearing on Thursday. So we do recognise it. The second thing is that you've presented a lot of important historical and unique context to the application. So if you are able to submit that at deadline 1, then we'd be grateful, because it does provide information to us that we can take into consideration as part of the examination. So thank you. That was really helpful. Really helpful. I think it's Jeffrey Alan Dugen next, who's online. I can't actually see the screen. Is he there? Yes. If you could turn your camera on, Mr. Dugen. Perfect.
This, you got it?
We can see and hear you. Yes, that's brilliant. Are you able and ready to start your...
I am, yes. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, yes. We can hear you very well. I can't quite see you because I'm behind a screen.
You can see me, yes?
I can see you now, yes.
Okay.
That's excellent.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Geoffrey Dugen. I am a Manx citizen, albeit I now live on the mainland. I'm now fully retired, but before I retired, I was in construction. I was a chief design manager for design and build contracts. I fully support net zero and the transition to clean energy. However, I do have significant concerns regarding the more Vannin proposals and the narrow focus on the environment and economic assessments. I still have family living on the island, and I visit at least twice a year. On doing so, I'm sure I see the island, as many tourists do, which is a little oasis, mostly unspoiled by the modern world. Indeed, it is a gem in the Irish Sea. The island mentioned UNESCO Biosphere status and its £212 million annual tourism industry are built upon a pristine coastal character. Each replacing our unspoiled horizon with an array of 87 turbines, each 350 metres high, and Chapter 3 it refers to this, with the western boundary just 6.5 miles of Knackled Head, comprising 12 to 15 turbines, represents a permanent industrialisation and degradation of a finite national asset, for which the proposed 1.5 million annual community fund is not a benefit, but a wholly inadequate attempt to mitigate the irreversible environmental degradation. I believe the island's 2030 target should be viewed as a policy goal, not as a mandatory deadline that justifies environmental destruction. By rushing, we are precluding cleaner, more compact technologies. While the island moved away from nuclear in 2021, that stance predates the viability of small modular reactors, SMRs, which now form part of the UK's 2026 energy strategy. An SMR provides a firm 24/7 baseload with a footprint of just 0.04 square miles compared to the 82 square miles required for this wind farm. This is a far less destructive path to decarbonisation that does not require fossil fuel backup when the wind doesn't blow. An alternative solution would also be to have a connector to the Walney wind farm. Why doesn't Ørsted extend the Walney wind farm instead of building this horrendous 87 turbines array off our coastline? Environmentally, the underwater construction, noise and vibration will drastically damage the seabed ecosystem. While Ørsted suggests foundations act as reefs, these are often colonised by non-native species, disrupting our native ecology. Chapter 8 refers. Above the water, the collision hazard to bird populations along the northeast coast is critical. Knackled Head is home to the island's largest cormorant colony, alongside puffins and kittiwakes. These are sensitive receptors, Chapter 9 refers, that face displacement or death. The island-man carbon footprint is only 0.001% of the total global carbon output. Is the Manx government prepared to sacrifice these precious habitats for this small amount of carbon? The nighttime impact of the red medium intensity aviation lights, Chapter 15 refers, will destroy the dark sky and nighttime horizon. The UNESCO Biosphere is not just for land, but also for the night sky. The existing photomontages are not very clear, especially those at night, and I consider more high-resolution photomontages should be produced. In addition, and I think it's already been mentioned, I urge the examiners to view the pristine coastline that will be lost, not only from Knackled Head, but to view it from a higher point like North Barrule or Snaefell, because from a higher point, you see the full depth of the array. You'll see the full depth of these 87 turbines. So in conclusion, Mr. Chairman, I ask the examining body to consider whether the Isle of Man is truly being offered a partnership or merely a payout for the destruction of its greatest asset. If we allow this 350-metre industrial array to permanently alter our UNESCO biosphere and our seabed and our skyline for such a disproportionately small return, we aren't just losing our horizon, we are signed up to a blind bargain with no guarantee of restoration. I urge you to recommend the Council of Ministers rejects this proposal as an unacceptable compromise of a Manx heritage, and to seek other less intrusive technologies and preserve our coastline in perpetuity. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dugan. That was really helpful, really informative. You've raised some core issues for the examination, things like landscape and visual, which is forming an integral part of it, design, appearance, engineering, energy. They're all really valuable and important issues that we're addressing as part of the examination. And also ecology, and particularly kittiwake. So ecology is a big feature of the issue-specific hearing on Thursday. So I can assure you that all the issues you've raised have been incorporated and will be included in the examination process. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sure, go on. And Monica, the Chair would like to comment.
Thank you for that representation, Mr. Dugan, and not just based on your representation, but based on a few that have been made today. I did have a request from the applicant. Can I get a show of hands from who's present here from the applicant? Okay, thank you. There's several reps today about the scale of the project, and it's not just spatially, but also in terms of the energy generation, the maximum energy generation that that could be provided with this development. And what a lot of representations have said today is that this is more than compared to what principal stakeholders or representations today claim is needed by the island. I think what would be really helpful is if you could pick that point up on its own and provide a justification and a policy context for why that scale in terms of number of turbines, the order limits itself, offshore, and the energy generation capacity that you've chosen. What is the justification for that? Okay, applicants nodding. This is for the recording. Applicants nodding that they will provide this for us. Deadline 1, apologies, yeah.
So I think the next person is it Janet Clark, now representing David Crane? Perfect. If you'd like to come forward. Welcome, make yourself comfortable.
Thank you.
Sorry?
I'm Janet Clark. Hello, thank you.
If you'd like to start when you're ready, that'd be great.
Sorry?
If you'd like to start when you're ready, that'd be great.
Thank you. I'm speaking in the time slot which was originally reserved for Mr. David Crane, and this relates to a matter of governance and transparency. Over the past decade, several international policy and finance networks, including the UN Global Compact, the International Renewable Energy Agency, the World Bank's Climate Investment Funds, the World Economic Forum, and the Organisation for Economic Cooperation and Development have become closely involved in developing the frameworks which now shape the renewables industry. Many of the same corporations that helped design those frameworks, including Ørsted, now participate and profit from them commercially. That's perfectly lawful, but without transparency, it can blur the distinction between policy influence and commercial interest. In light of the recent resignation of the World Economic Forum's chief executive and Ørsted's ongoing role as a World Economic Forum partner and as a participant in its Responsible Renewables Infrastructure Coalition and the First Movers Coalition, this seems an appropriate moment to strengthen public safeguards. May I therefore ask the examining authority to require that all organisations involved in the project, including developers, consultancies, departments, examining officers and invited stakeholders, to formally declare any current or recent partnerships, memberships or funding relationships with such international policy bodies over the past 5 years. A simple public register showing both connections and the absence of connections would demonstrate that decision-making here is fully independent of global policy alliances and that public governance remains separate from private influence. Transparency at this level is not a criticism. It is a practical assurance for everyone involved. Thank you very much. I've got my references as well I can send in.
That's perfect, thank you. That was really helpful. If you can send them in, that'd be great.
Sorry?
That was really helpful, thank you.
Thank you.
I'll now hand over to the chair.
Thank you, Ms. Pownell. Can I invite Ms. Kate Greaves? Did I pronounce your name correctly? Okay. You have 5 minutes, Ms. Greaves.
Thank you. So I'm Kate Greaves. I'm a resident of Garth, Macclesfield in particular. And I'm here representing myself, a member of the public.
Could you pull the microphone closer to you?
Excuse me. Yeah, it needs to be quite close.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Is that better?
No.
Is it on? Hello? My name's Kate Greaves, and I'm here representing myself as a member of the public. I live in Macclesfield in Garth, along with my family, and I've been a Manx resident for 30 years. I'm an accountant by trade. And my points are fairly brief, but they are specifically surrounding the largest benefit to the island that has been advertised recently and shared with the Manx public.
We can't hear. Sorry, we can't hear you.
Just speak.
Closer.
Yeah.
Okay. I would like to raise questions regarding the £2 billion income figure that has predominantly been referenced in public communications as a key benefit of this proposal to the island. In the absence of any benefit of fuel or fuel security for the island, this seems to be the biggest benefit that I can see in the documentation. The projected financial benefit appears to be relied upon in justifying the scale of the development as well, and I believe it is relevant to the panel to understand the basis and the certainty of that figure, of that income to the Isle of Man. So I would like the applicant to confirm when the £2 billion figure was first calculated and whether it's been updated to reflect current market conditions and inflation. If so, when was that updated? Is the figure derived specifically from the projected seabed rental payments and taxation payments, or is there something else that's included within that figure? Is the £2 billion a guaranteed contractual income to the Isle of Man, or is it a projection that's dependent on assumptions such as electricity prices, generation output, and export agreements? Is it a figure that's been expressed as a gross lifetime receipt, or is it a net benefit after accounting for additional public costs, such as regulatory oversight, environmental monitoring, administrative resources, infrastructure upgrades, and decommissioning supervision? If it is gross, has any net impact assessment been undertaken, and if so, can this be provided? And could the applicant explain how the £2 billion income is expected to arise over time? Is the income profile relatively even across the 35-year operational life, or is it weighted towards later years? If the majority of the income is projected in later years, how does this affect the certainty of the figure given market volatility and policy change risk? Has the figure been discounted to present value using a net present value methodology? And if so, what discount rate has been applied? In recent communications, it's been suggested that all costs will be borne by the developer. Will the applicant clarify whether any costs associated with bringing the electricity onshore, should it be brought onshore, including grid reinforcement or integration with the Manx system, any substations that need to be constructed and so on, will this be borne by the developer, or will this fall directly or indirectly to Manx utilities or the Manx taxpayers? And finally, it's been stated that approximately £1.5 million per year may be available in the first 15 years through a community benefit mechanism. Is there any additional provision for compensation where residents can demonstrate material financial loss or adverse impact arising from the development? Given that the financial projection is being presented as a significant public benefit to justify the long-term environmental impact, would the applicant be prepared to publish a transparent breakdown of the calculation model used to derive this £2 billion figure? Thank you.
Ms. Greaves, those are really, really good points. And just to assure you that several of these points are being covered tomorrow at specific issue hearing 1. And whatever the applicant shares with us then, because we will be seeking some justifications and further information on some of these matters, there will be follow-on questions from that in written questions as well. So just to assure you that the matters are being covered there.
Thank you.
The £1.5 million community benefit is a matter that we will cover through written questions and not necessarily through the hearings. There is a certain limitation to the scope of this examination. So there are certain matters that we, of course, it's within our power to ask the applicant to provide, because we need that justification in order to ultimately make the case to the Council of Ministers. And I think a lot of what you've said is within the scope of the examination. There are some matters outside the scope of the examination, so bear with us if we are unable to explore some of those matters. But as I said, a lot of those matters are within the scope of this examination. I'm just going to wait to see if any of my colleagues have questions. No? Okay, good.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Greaves. I will invite the next speaker. We've got Miss Georgina O'Sullivan. Good evening, Ms. O'Sullivan. You have 5 minutes whenever you're ready.
Good evening. My name is Georgina O'Sullivan. I'm here to discuss procedural fairness and natural justice. Let me preface my comments and say I'm here in the capacity of a fair-minded and impartial observer. I'm not a lawyer, just a local Garth resident. These are my concerns and opinions, and my remarks in no way are meant to impugn the examiner's abilities. I'm questioning the procedure and process under which they were retained by the Isle of Man government. The Marine Infrastructure Management Act requires an independent examining body. In simple terms, that means, to me, the people sitting at the table should have no skin in the game. They should be like a jury, neutral and objective. But when we look at the composition of this panel, it's difficult to see how that standard is met. 3 of the 4 people appointed to judge this application are senior leaders at the same private company, Infrastructure Matters. This isn't a diverse group of independent experts, it's a firm majority. If 3 people from the same office are making the decisions, there is a risk that the 4th person becomes a passenger. To a regular person, it appears that the independent check has been concentrated within a single commercial interest. Now let's look at the commercial nature of Infrastructure Matters. They advertise, they help applicants get approval. Their website highlights their success in navigating the path to consent. Their commercial viability as a firm would appear to be built on the success of these types of projects. How can the public have confidence in a panel's ability to remain impartial when their firm's professional brand is built on securing approvals? If I'm in a court case, I don't expect the judge to be a partner in a firm that tells the public, we help people win. This creates an apprehension of bias that fails the common sense test of fairness in my mind. The Isle of Man's own rules on public life say the appointees should not be under any obligation to outside interests that might influence their duties. By having a majority of the panel come from one firm with a pro-approval track record, the process risks falling short of that standard. If this continues, the public can't really have full confidence in the result. Any recommendation made by a panel with this level of commercial overlap may be seen as legally fragile. Having considered these facts, the appointment of such examination team could lead a fair-minded and informed observer to believe that there was a real possibility that the decision makers could be biased. I ask that the following be recorded in the minutes today. I object to the panel's composition on the grounds of objective bias. I'm requesting a formal statement on how these examiners can be viewed as independent when their private firm's success is linked to the very approvals they are here to judge. Justice must not only be done, but must be seen to be done. Right now, the appearance of impartiality has been compromised in my mind. Thank you.
Thank you for that representation, Ms. O'Sullivan. There are a few points that I would like to respond to. So, the process of the examination will be open and transparent, and all principal stakeholders are free to raise all relevant issues. The examining body will not be making the final decision. So we are only making a recommendation, and the decision will ultimately be made by the Council of Ministers. As we declared in our declaration of interest speech this morning at the preliminary meeting, you were present, but if you have missed any part of that, it will be noted in the minutes for the meeting this morning. We have made a declaration that we do not have any financial, commercial, or otherwise any professional relationship with either the applicant or any department at the Isle of Man. Indeed, and more importantly, we've not made any decisions on the merits of the application. We will ensure that this examination allows all principal stakeholders to participate, make their points, and we will ensure that all matters raised and evidence provided into examination is taken into account. When we gave our introductions, and I don't want to labor on this point at all about the conflicts of interest, but we have no financial interest in any entity or land affected by the proposed development. You have raised points about our appointment and the fact that we are senior members of infrastructure matters. These are matters that I will defer to the Cabinet Office to respond to, as Cabinet Office and the Council of Ministers are the bodies that have appointed us. They have led a process of recruitment with selection criteria and due diligence, which it's been done transparently, and they are able to give you their rationale for appointing us and their reasoning for appointing us. It is worth highlighting that all four members of the examining body today have successful careers as unchallenged inspectors. It is worth also highlighting that we have not just recommended offshore wind farms or other infrastructure projects for approval. We have in fact made recommendations that consent be withheld. So in delivering our duty as impartial, independent examiners, which collectively we have done for several years, we have a track record of both recommending approval and withholding consent. I think the important point over here is that while our experience is one thing. Predetermination is one thing which we would consider unlawful, and we can demonstrate with our professional track record that that is something that is not on the table at all. But like you said, on certain other matters, I think the matter needs to be responded to in writing, and possibly some of those matters will need to be responded to in writing by the Cabinet Office. Don't leave yet. I will see if some of my colleagues have any comments to make. You do? Okay. I'll hand over to Mr. Smith.
I think it's very important to acknowledge, Ms. O'Sullivan, the degree to which you have brought this matter to this meeting because you believe that it is critically important that a fair, impartial process of examination is conducted. And I think all of us have to acknowledge the rectitude of that position. I think, as our chair has put to you very plainly, we have all, in our various ways and in our various professional capacities, had long careers that have involved us always delivering, whoever we are working for, an independent appraisal, an independent recommendation on the matters before us. And as our chair indicated, that has included making recommendations that both support and indicate against, on the basis of applicable law, applicable policy, and planning balance, planning merits, the schemes that we have been asked to investigate. I will finally touch on the fact that all four of us are Chartered Town Planners. We're all members of the Royal Town Planning Institute, and that has an independent code of conduct irrespective of any other matters in play here, and that binds us to be fair and independent and free of bias in any of our professional activities whatsoever. And frankly, it also holds us to account because that entity, the Royal Town Planning Institute, also has a director responsible for professional conduct, and complaints can indeed be made to that body if anybody believes that we have veered from the path required of us by that code of conduct. These are matters that professionally we all take very seriously, and all I can do is indicate for myself, and I'm sure for my colleagues too, our utter commitment to the delivery of an examination in this place that it fully adheres to the requirements of that code of conduct.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Ms. O'Sullivan, your objection is noted. And it is, I don't expect that our responses to some of the questions you've raised will alleviate your concerns. But was there any follow-up points after what you've heard from myself?
No, I'd like to thank the examining body. I think those assurances are taken on board. And obviously, we are here as a populace to bring forward our concerns. And this is not just my concern. This is something that I've heard from many people. And I'm thankful that you've answered some of those questions.
Thank you very much for bringing them to me. We have had an assurance from the Cabinet Office that they will respond to this matter on deadline 1. Thank you. Okay, I see one hand up. Before I come to you, sir, would you mind terribly if I... No, actually, sorry, my apologies. Do come forward. What is the point?
And it's a matter of courtesy, really. Martin Royal, Garth Clark, Garth Commissioners, as a matter of courtesy to yourselves, just to let you know that we are in dialogue with the Cabinet Office about those very perceptions. So it is just to let you know, we are looking into that, although I find it quite reassuring what's been said today. Thank you.
That's really good. Good. Okay. So we have now covered off all 15 speakers who had registered to speak. So that is agenda item 3. I'm going to move on to agenda item 4. But before I start looking for show of hands, I just wanted to remind everyone that the draft, the examination timetable in the Regulation 32 letter, Annex C, allows for the possibility of additional public meetings to be held at further rounds of hearings. So if you today feel that I did not register at this meeting, please speak to the case manager for details on how and when to register for future public meetings. However, we have decided that we will use our discretion to allow further representations at this public meeting, even though no advance notice was given to do so. We will not, however, allow you to make or repeat points that have been made by other speakers. So on that basis, are there any other persons wanting to speak today? I'm just looking for a show of hands at the moment. Okay, I see 3 hands. Gentleman right at the back, if you could give us your name. Are you noted? Bear with us while the microphone comes to you.
Yes.
What we might do is take the names and then we will take a break before coming back and actually taking representations. So give us your names, we'll make a list for now, and then we'll take a brief break and come back.
So we have Mr. Jessup. I do have the name of Mr. Jessup, but can we just have the other hands again, please, and just have the names?
He's spoken already.
Mr. Henthorne, you have already spoken.
Yes, I have already spoken, but I have 2 different subjects. They are much shorter than the first one.
As a matter of, I guess, fairness, we do try to ensure that when people speak in these processes, that we don't accord a speaking opportunity to a person who has previously spoken, because actually, sir, if you'd appreciate, if we did that, then the gates are open and we have to accord unfettered rights to all to speak on multiple occasions. I'll check with the chair, but I think my instinct here would be that you are, of course, welcome to put additional material to us in writing.
Can we have the microphone for the gentleman in the second row? No, just for the name.
Jamie Smith, Garth Commissioner.
Mr. Smith, can I just check, would you be speaking on behalf of the commissioners, or is this a personal?
At least one of the points is something that I heard today, so therefore I can't have the approval of the board yet, so I guess I'm saying personal.
Personal. Right,
okay.
Thank you very much. On that basis, we've got 2 requests to speak.
Sorry. Given that we've got 2 requests to speak, I'm not even looking at my colleagues at this point. I'm just going to crack on. We won't take a break, and we'll just crack on. And so if I can invite Mr. Jessup to the table in front. Mr. Jessup, please introduce yourself formally, and then you have 5 minutes.
Thank you. I'm Andrew Jessup. I'm pleased to report I'm yet another geographer. I'm also a long-standing environmental campaigner on the island. I'm a long-standing Braddon Commissioner, although I currently reside in Garth and I live on Clay Head. Okay.
Good.
So, as I say, I'm a long-standing environmental campaigner on the Isle of Man. I was a founder member of Zero Waste Man, founder member of the Green Centre, founder member of the current Isle of Man Green Party. I just have to make clear I'm not speaking on behalf of the Green Party, I'm not speaking on behalf of Braddon Commissioners, I'm speaking on my own behalf. Possibly unusually, compared to what you've heard from everybody else, I'm a keen supporter of the project. I'm going to speak on general terms rather than specific matters, but I can say that I opposed the building of the Peel Power Station, I opposed the building of the Pulrose Power Station, I opposed the building of the incinerator, which provides a certain amount of electricity, all on the basis that they were powered by fossil fuels, which the Isle of Man had no control over. Therefore, it was completely and utterly stupid for us to try and claim that we had our own independent power system. We then spent £250 million on producing electricity for 80-odd thousand residents, which again I felt was a complete and utter waste of money, and that we should have been doing something a lot sooner, along with a lot of my other Green Centre colleagues that said that we should have been attempting to get away from fossil fuels and produce power through non-polluting methods. And obviously we've wasted 20 years or more in not doing anything until potentially now. I fully appreciate the concerns of my fellow residents of Garth and elsewhere, and some of them have very valid concerns. I would say that the coastline's been around for many millennia, and we're talking about an intrusion into that landscape for maybe a few decades. Therefore, it's not going to be a permanent destruction of our coastline. I accept it will be an intrusion as far as some people are concerned, but again, it's very much a subjective issue. My concern, as much as anything else, is the fact that carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, no boundaries, and the effects of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere as well knows no boundaries. And therefore, for us to just consider about the impact of this development on just the Isle of Man is something that when we're part of a global community which is facing a climate crisis, that it's just as much for us to do it, regardless of the uniqueness of the Isle of Man. And I love the Isle of Man. That's why I choose to make it my place to live. I've lived here for more than half my life, and therefore, like everybody else, I want to protect the things that are nice about the Isle of Man as much as anywhere. But again, I'm also looking at, the future for my children and my grandchildren. And, when we see the sites of burning oil tanks and gas tanks in the Middle East, that again to me reinforces that we have got to do something different, that we cannot continue to rely on other people providing us with fuel to keep our gas turbines turning and our diesel generators generating electricity. Therefore, yes, I think there may be the requirement for, mitigating as many of the potential adverse impacts of this development. However, we've, as I say, been talking about wind generation on the island for a long time, so I don't, fully accept the fact that there has been no consultation with the public about wind turbines, either onshore. Again, I'm a big supporter of building them on shore, not just offshore. And yes, there are a lot of people that are just against them, for dogmatic reasons. But there are many people on the Isle of Man that also support the generation of electricity. So it's by wind. So it's by no means that everybody on the Isle of Man is against, which you might get the impression from the evidence that's been put forward to you.
Mr. Jessup, that was a great presentation. It's just, I quite relate with some of the points that you've just put to us, because the conflict that you've tried to outline for us, which is you're against fossil fuels, you're very much for renewables, but you think that the project is going to affect the coastline of the Isle of Man. That's exactly the sort of question that's before the examining body. So if, and just, this is for everyone in the audience, that one of the ways that we consider matters before us is that it's a very simple planning balance exercise. We weigh the harm that the project does against the benefits of the project. So it is very important for us to understand both aspects of it. And that's exactly the process that we're going to follow. So when I say that we've not made any decisions on the project, we genuinely haven't, because we just don't have the information before us. And what we are doing during this examination is collecting that evidence, that justification, in order for us, right at the end, to do the planning balance exercise. So everything you've just said is exactly the question that's before the examining body.
Yeah, I fully understand the process. I've been to many public inquiries in the past.
Excellent. Good. I'm going to just check if my colleagues have any questions, and they don't. Good. Can we now get the representation from
Mr. James Smith?
Mr. James Smith, thank you. Mr. James Smith, if you can come forward, please.
Excuse me. Jamie Smith, Garth Commissioner, but I'm speaking as an individual. And I have two brief points. So you've heard a lot today about the biosphere. I believe Garth Commissioners were the first local authority that were assigned biosphere status. And you've heard a lot about it today. And when Mr. Desmond was giving evidence about comparison with the Jurassic Coast, which is a World Heritage Site, I believe one of the panel slightly dismissively said, well, because this is only biosphere status, not World Heritage Site. So I would like to just read, and I will submit it before deadline 1, from the UK government website on UK tentative list of potential sites for World Heritage nomination. Laxey Valley, geographical location, well, we know where it is, etc., etc. And there's chapter and verse about the natural landscape. When I first became a commissioner about 9 years ago, I did look into this, and I gather that because the Laxey Valley did apply for World Heritage Site status, and anecdotally, it wasn't the fact that it didn't pass the requirements, but rather the application was not well formed. So we are talking about what, in my opinion, and it's very much a personal opinion, is a worthy of World Heritage Site without having that label. So I just thought we'd clear that up, that in my opinion, with a little bit of promotion, we are probably talking about a site that could in the future become World Heritage Site status, partly because of its industrial heritage, but also partly because of its connection with the natural landscape. The other point I'd like to make is a concern that I have, and I share with my colleagues, about the subjective, subjective and subliminal, possibly, campaign that ought to have mounted with the adverts on the local radio stations and at the airport and through our letterbox and things like that, and that by implying without explicitly saying that they have managed to get a lot of the Manx public to believe that this will be cheap electricity and energy security, neither of which I'm aware of any proof that those are going to be the case. We feel that it has been, from a campaigning point of view, very successful, but not fair. And it's fairness that, at the end of the day, we are asking for, in the same way as Garth Commissioners, when we're looking at someone who wants to put a large shed next to the neighbour's boundary, we're generally looking for fairness as a whole. And again, without wanting to besmirch yourselves, my worry is that even subconsciously you might be concerned that your company would be associated with a failed project if this wasn't taken over the line. Your company is about getting projects over the line. That is in their front page of their website. So I don't see how you can separate a project that might not happen as being a negative publicity when 3 out of the 4 members are from that company. Thank you.
I will take that. Thank you, Mr. Smith. There's a few points that you've made there. One is points generally about the designation of the World Heritage Site, and I think we've got a few questions in our mind about that, so rest assured that those matters will be taken forward. You've raised the matter about our company, and I'm assuming by that you're referring to infrastructure matters. Can I just assure everyone that while Mr. Smith, Ms. Fernandez, and I are employed by Infrastructure Matters, our appointment by the Council of Ministers is as independent examiners. And it is exactly on the same premise as the Planning Inspectorate in the UK appoints people on an independent basis. And the requirement before us by the Council of Ministers and the assurance that we as individual planners have given to them is to conduct this examination impartially. And so the outcome of this project is not necessarily something that we are concerned with. It is a fair conduct of the examination in order to make sure that our recommendation to the Council of Ministers is well reasoned on that basis. So I just wanted to clarify that point, that we are appointed as independent people. And like I said, the the Cabinet Office will respond to the point about how we were appointed, what were the recruitment criteria, what was the due diligence that was carried out. But one of the points that I've made previously is that we have had a track record of acting in this capacity of several years between us. So that's, I just wanted to clarify that point. I'm just going to double check if my colleague had a point about the World Heritage Site. Did you want to ask?
Thank you very much. It was the point I was making, which I think you referred to as dismissive, wasn't dismissive at all. It was clarifying the difference between the UNESCO World Heritage Status site and the biosphere, and understanding the difference between the two. And that was the point I was driving at when I was asking your colleague to just explain when the biosphere status came about, which we now know is 2016.
He's not my colleague. He's not my colleague. The gentleman's not my colleague. I made the remarks.
Indeed.
Yes.
The person who spoke before you.
Yes.
The other principal stakeholder that came before us. I apologise for calling you a colleague. But that was the context within which those points were made.
Okay. I wasn't sure whether you're aware of the application, the failed application that Laxey Valley did for World Heritage Site status.
I was not, and that would indeed be very helpful for us to have that deadline. I shall submit it. Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Smith, so there was that action, which I want to clarify, is that we were not aware of the application for the World Heritage status. If you've got any further information, we would really like to have that in examination. Okay. Okay. And at the risk of delaying everybody, I am going to ask one final time for a show of hands of anybody else wishing to speak. No, and I don't see anybody in the virtual room making any indication to speak. Okay, so with that, I think we can quite safely move on to agenda item 5, and all that is left for me is to make some closing remarks. And I think it's really important, particularly at a public meeting, to really say that we're very grateful for all of those who've taken time to attend and to make representations today. Your participation really assists the examining body in ensuring that all relevant issues are explored before the recommendation is made. The matters raised will be carefully considered as part of the examination, and where appropriate, may give rise to further written questions or requests for clarification. As I have stated before, we do require representations to be well evidenced, so we may be coming back to you to seek that further evidence from you in order to support that representation. The applicant is invited to respond in writing to matters raised at this meeting at deadline 1, which is the 31st of March, with that additional question that I put to the applicant on that matter. Close. With the time now is 14 minutes past 6 p.m. and I am now closing the public meeting number 1.